Hello kids, welcome to the online Sunday school classes. Hope you are going through the videos that has been uploaded and liking the same. So today I'm going to talk about Saint Gregorios of Parumala from class 10's book. So before we actually talk about his life and his work, let's understand what does this term saint means and why is there a concept of saint. So, Roman Catholic Church frequently declares saints, which we get to know through medias and newspaper. However, Orthodox Church did not have this concept, or as a tradition, this concept was never there. But after the influence of some Western culture, concept of canonization was started. So, Gregorios Mar Gregorias, Metropolitan, otherwise called as Parumala Thirumeni, was declared as a saint by the then Catholicos. So, why was he declared as a saint? What was the need? Now, Parumala Thirumeni had already got a fame as saintly when he lived, and after his death, hundreds of people began to come over his tomb for his intercession. Now, pilgrims had been increasing year on year, since believers from all churches as well as many non-Christians also believed in this saint's intercession. Finally, church gave an approval to declare him as a saint. Now, who is a saint? Is he equal to a god? Is he a replacement to God? The answer to this is no. Saint is not a god. The saint, in a simple term, if I have to explain you, are a mediator, or they are the ones who have lived their life according to God's will, or they've lived closer to God's life, and therefore we believe and we have a faith that God has blessed them and anointed them, especially with more powers. So therefore people, when they pray to them thinking that their prayer will be heard fast and God will answer them. So that is the reason we have this concept of saint, and that why we regard them as holy. So on that note, let's begin with our chapter on Saint Gregorios of Parumala. Now, Saint Gregorios was, let's talk about his childhood and education. So Thirumeni's childhood name was Kuchaipura. His mother died early, so he was brought up by his father and his sister Mariam. Right from the childhood, he was very different from rest of the children of his age. He was never interested in games, wearing expensive clothes, eating different foods. Instead of this, he was deeply inclined towards continuous prayer, reading Bible, and listening to lives of saints, and used to observe fasting right from his younger age. When people like to eat food, he used to fast. So he began his formal education in a traditional village school itself. His teachers were also from low class, and so he had a very simple and humble upbringing. He was very focused. We know that he was different already, but he was also very studious, very focused and hardworking. So in a way, he was a role model for his friends in the way he used to conduct himself, the way he used to respect his elders and his teachers. So even when he became a big, he became a church dignitary, and whenever he used to visit to his native village, he used to ensure that he is meeting his childhood gurus and offer them gifts as a gratitude. Now his uncle, Reverend Father Gregorios Malpan, was an authority in the Syriac language. Syriac language at that time was considered, even now I think it's a very difficult language to learn and to understand. So he recognized that Kuchaipura has some outstanding and divine qualities, and he thought of teaching him that Syrian language. And actually Reverend Father saw himself or his successor in him, and therefore he wanted to teach him and take him as his own disciple for priesthood. Then he spoke to the Malankara Metropolitan of that time and his family members, and with everybody's due permission, Kuchaipura was ordained as Guroyu, which means subdeacon, at Karingachira Church in September 1858. Now, this is when his theological education began. And during that time there was no seminary, there was no special schools and colleges for theological education. So generally students or deacons used to be with the priest and understand and be with their gurus and learn. So Deacon Gregorios also stayed with Gregorios Malpan for his education and completed his priestly education. Sadly, his teacher, that is his uncle also, he contracted smallpox, a dreaded disease, and he died. So in 1865, smallpox was an epidemic. It spread like we have a corona issue at hand today, and we are all in lockdown. So smallpox was also an epidemic which was extremely dangerous, and it was life threatening. People who used to develop it ultimately used to succumb to this and die. It was a disease there'll be small pustules outburst on your skin. There'll be flu-like symptoms, and it might impact the other major organs, and therefore people used to die. So Father Malpan also developed this, and he died. So all the students, when he developed this, all the students were asked to go because it's a contagious disease. People were asked to go back to their homes, but our deacon decided to be with him, and he took care of him. But unfortunately, despite all the efforts and treatment, nobody could save Gregorios Malpan, and he died. Soon after that, Kochaipura deacon also developed this disease, and his was a very rare and a dangerous variety called Kanaka Kalluri. Now, but he was very confident. He was like had full faith in God, and he used to continuously pray. His family, when got to know, came down to take care of him, which gave him a lot of relief. So one day when he was really sick and ill, and Mother Mary appeared to him, and she said that, be rest assured, you'll be fine soon, and when you get better, you should follow and dedicate your life to God. So miraculously, deacon fully recovered and followed what Saint Mary guided him to do. So now his journey towards priesthood goes on. So he became a disciple of Mar Gregorias, and its journey from subdeacon to core episcopa is what we are going to cover in this slide. But before we actually speak about what is there in the slide, it is very important for me to explain you, and I want you to understand that what does this subdeacon, deacon, priest, core episcopa, bishop, metropolitan, all of this term means. So these are various designations that a person or a titles that people achieve in this priestly journey that they do. So they start with the subdeacon, and then they become a full deacon, then they become a priest, and from there they become a core episcopa, and then a journey of bishop, metropolitan, catholicos, or patriarch and all would start. So a person to be a bishop or a Ramban or a metropolitan, there are certain other, besides the experience and the skills, there are other things. People have to lead a life of a monk. You're not allowed, people do not marry and do not have their own personal family life. They dedicate themselves totally for the people, for the society, and for God's work. So these are the different titles that people earn over a period of time. So I want you to understand that. Okay, so now this bishop, Mar Gregorias from Syria, visited Travancore, met Deacon Gregorios, and was impressed with Deacon's command and scholarship in Syriac language, his wisdom and his devotion. So Deacon also traveled with him as a translator and a guide, and Bishop then later ordained him as a full deacon from subdeacon, and this was the same bishop who later made him a priest and core episcopa. Now Father Gregorios, which Kochaipura, who is now Father Gregorios, learnt about monk's life from this bishop and decided to follow a vocation of monk in his life. So he was very much attracted by this life, and because this is totally about God's life, so he wanted to follow this. He was very popular among people. People used to really like and believe it, but he wanted to always lead a secretive, simple life where he can only pray and have a connect with God. So that's a real sign of a good monk. So people have faith in him, and they had faith in his ascetic life. Now let's talk about elevation to full monastic vow, Ramban. So monasticism or monkhood or monastic movement, what is it? It is nothing but it is the religious way of life in when one renounces or abandons or leaves all the worldly pursuits to devote oneself fully to God's work or spiritual work. Monastic life plays a very important role in many Christian churches, especially in Catholic and Orthodox, and you would have seen in other faiths also, like Buddhism and Hinduism. You would have seen monks, especially in Buddhism. If you have gone to any hill station, you'll find a lot of monks there. So during those days, in Malankara Syrian Church, it was monastic movement wasn't very famous. So the Metropolitan then Pulikal Mar Dionysius V gave a charismatic leadership to Malankara Church with his new vision. He was looking for pious and noble monks who can add value, who can give a new life to the church. So he was searching for such people, and his search finally took him to Vatical Daira, where our own very Reverend Gregorios Cor Episcopa. And on April 7th, 1872, Pulicotal Thirumeni made Gregorios Cor Episcopa a Ramban. He was just 24 at that age. So now what does this Ramban means now? Ramban is a priest of Orthodox or Jacobite Church who is unmarried, leads a monastic life similar to that of a monk at a place of prayer, which is called a daira. So which means these people are generally unmarried and lead a monastic life. That is, they don't have their own family and they live at a place of prayer called daira. Now let's talk about his consecration in Metropolitan. Now there's a change. A person who wanted to be totally leading a monk's life becomes a Metropolitan. How does this happen? Let's talk about it. Now, so there was this coming of Patriarch Peter from Syria, which is Patriarch is a very highest order title that one person can achieve. So he came to India and he wanted somebody to translate his sermons into Malayalam, which people in India and Kerala can understand. So he met Gregorios Ramban and he, who helped him translate the Syriac sermon. Now, attracted by his pious and humble and devotional qualities, Patriarch wanted to ordain him as a bishop. But Ramban wanted a simple ascetic life. He refused to this offer because, and why would he refuse to become a bishop? Because when you become a bishop, you are given a responsibility of few churches. You become a responsible. You are responsible for a diocese, which means that you have to take care of them, manage them, ensure that everything is working well there. So, a lot of your time would get into the managing the administrative activities, and Ramban was not ready for for diverting or his attention from God's activity to anything else. He wanted just to have a prayerful life, but this title would have made him work on other aspects also. Therefore he was not interested. But I'm sure with everybody's persuasion, and later on he felt that maybe this is God's will, and he submitted to that will and finally became a bishop. So now when he became a bishop, how was his daily routine? So his daily routine was that he used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and others also used to get up, then get into a prayer. So 4 to 5 there used to be prayer time. After the prayer till 7 he used to teach deacons, and after 7 then they used from 8:30 till 9 they used to be, and after teaching the deacon there used to be private prayer, then followed by a breakfast. After that again 9 o'clock third hour prayer, and then again he used to teach them till 11 o'clock, manage the administrative activities, have lunch, rest for some time, again teach deacons till about 4 o'clock, and then have evening prayer, take bath, have supper, teach them again till 9 o'clock, have the night prayer, compliant prayer, and off to sleep. And during his sleep also he used to take small breaks to perform prayers. So you can see how disciplined, how difficult this life was. There's no scope of entertainment for him. The only entertainment was to connect with God, his prayers. So now, what was his qualities? So, out of many qualities that he had, he was humble, he was nice, he was kind. All of these are his qualities. What was the other big quality that he had? The other quality that he had is he never used to worry about tomorrow, because he was confident about God's powers. He knew that God can do anything, and there was no need for them to worry, unlike us who keeps worrying about what will happen tomorrow. What if I don't get good marks? What if I don't pass? Etc., etc. We are always worried about tomorrow, but he was not. He had just believed, do good and good will happen, God will take care of the rest. So that is how his attitude was. So seminary at that time did not have any income. So other churches used to give something and some food next. That's how seminary used to run. So one such day, seminary had left with nothing for the next day, and everybody, deacons and all his disciples, were worried. But our Thirumeni, as always, was very calm, and he said, "There's nothing to worry. The word of God says we need not worry about tomorrow." And the next morning, after the prayer, a few people came with bundle of rice, fruits, sweets, etc. for the seminary. A feast was getting conducted in their house, and they had brought a portion of it to the seminary. So see, his belief actually came true. God took care of them. God knew that they didn't have food, and God took care of them and got them enough and more food. So since then, seminary inmates' faith and dependence in God grew powerfully. Okay, now let's talk about the Parumala Church, the famous Parumala Church, and we all know that it is a special one. A lot of people have a faith that if you go there and you pray with open heart and a deep faith, things are bound to happen. Your prayers get answered. So Parumala was an island at that time attached with many superstitions. So Arikapuram family had given a plot to build the parish church there. So Kochu Thirumeni got the land registered not in his name but in the name of Malankara Metropolitan. A small house called Aripura was constructed for teaching the deacons, called as seminary. It is the old building in the premise of Parumala. Now we can probably, when we go there, we can always see. Kochu Thirumeni, who took charge of Nirnam diocese, decided to live in that place and serve diocese matters from there. So people gave him some money. He collected it through charity and other means, and he always had a dream to build a church and a seminary for the student deacons. So he finally managed and built a church and a seminary building, which costed him worth 20,000 rupees, which was not a small amount at that point in time. It was a significant amount, but I'm sure with the help of people and everybody, he was able to build this. So on St. Mary's festival in 1895, Mar Gregorias consecrated the new church in the presence of Joseph Mar Dionysius of Pulikotl and celebrated Holy Kurbana. The church is dedicated in the name of Saint Peter and Saint Paul, and it's known as Saint Peter and Saint Paul's Indian Orthodox Church. In addition, there were two more altars. One was dedicated to Saint Mary and the other one to Saint Thomas. Several people started coming, and crowd was growing in number every day to attend prayers and, more importantly, to seek Thirumeni's blessings directly. The old church later was renewed and renovated and consecrated in July 2000. The one that we see is a renovated one. Now let's talk about the major events in his life. So, he had to manage 3 dioceses at the same time. Thirumeni was in charge of Nirnam diocese, but because of his skills and his abilities, he was made in charge of Thumbamon and Kollam as well. This way, he started interacting with more people and influenced many people's life, especially during the spread of smallpox. Thirumeni's ardent prayer miraculously healed and cured many people. He was also responsible in the church expansion. It was during Thirumeni's time the church boundaries were expanded. People from other faith also started showing interest in Orthodox trend, and they started joined especially from, Catholic Church and their leaders. So chief among them was Bishop Alvarez, Mar Julius Metropolitan, along with thousands of followers. He was a priest when he joined Orthodox Church. Thirumeni later made him a Ramban. In July 1889, Thirumeni consecrated him as bishop at Old Seminary and declared him as the first Metropolitan of outside Kerala diocese. Today's Brahmavar mission and diocese is the continuation of saintly work of Bishop Alvarez. Now let's talk about his journey to Colombo and Ceylon. So, people in America was also very fascinated with the Orthodox Church. So one priest from there, Father Reni Villati, was consecrated as bishop in Colombo on 21st May 1892. So in this ceremony, Parumala Church, Mar Athanasius of Ankamali diocese and Alvarez Mar Julius Metropolitan all had participated, and there was a great reception given to them. There was a great reception that was given to them in Ceylon. Now, I think it's very important for us to know this famous Jerusalem pilgrim that he made. So Thirumeni wanted to have a deep Christ experience and made a Jerusalem pilgrim, but it happened with a lot of difficulty because facilities back then was not good enough as it is today. Also, there was a serious shortage of money, and mode of travel was very difficult. You did not have single flights, one flight taking you there, and you can easily go and get landed. So it wasn't that easy. So he had to use different modes of travel. He used car, he used bus, train, ship and boats to reach there. Plus he had to really make an effort to collect money to, make this travel possible. The journey resulted in writing a very good travelogue named Uruslem Yatra Vivarnam. This book was highly appreciated in Kerala and was a textbook once in Sunday school. So he expressed, his deep spiritual experience in this book. He also has mentioned that he felt like staying there and pray unceasingly because he felt a different kind of a connect and a different spiritual ecstasy when he prayed there. So when he came back from Jerusalem, there was a lot of change in him. He brought back a significant change in his mission and vision. He wanted to bring reforms in the society and wanted to prevent people from committing sins due to illiteracy or poverty. He wanted to he wanted to eliminate discrimination between the low caste and untouchables. So separate parishes initially was constructed for them for their spiritual growth with an intent that once their status is changed, they can be given full membership with the church without any discrimination. And besides this missionary activity and social service, he also was a great teacher. So amongst the student deacons, there were two deacons who were given special attention. So Punnus from Kurichi, who later became Catholicos, named after His Holiness Basilius Gregorios II. He was the only one who declared him as a saint. The other was Paulos from Kutikal family Ankamali, who later became Metropolitan Mar Athanasius of Ankamali. Both were very good in keeping noble things inherited from their great guru. Thirumeni is also responsible for building a lot of schools. So he also built schools in Mulanturati, Kunnamkulam and Tiruvalla for untouchables and lower caste people for their better education and upliftment. Kunnamkulam school was later handed over to government and it is known as Matron School even now. After Thirumeni's demise, Tiruvalla school was named as Mar Gregorias Memorial High School, and it's a very well known, very famous school. Now there is an incident which is Golden Jubilee of Pulikottil Thirumeni, who was his guru, and Thirumeni for Pulikottil Thirumeni was very dear to him. So Pulikottil Mar Dionysius V was the Malankara Metropolitan during that time. Church wanted to honor him, so decided to celebrate his 50th anniversary of his priesthood at Kottayam in 1901. But climate was very adverse. It was continuously raining for a couple of days, and everybody was scared that how are we going to manage this function? Probably this will not happen, etc. So Parumala Thirumeni, as always, was calm, and he said he had some divine intuition, and he proclaimed that the weather tomorrow is going to be absolutely fine. And as he said, the celebration just went without any hurdles, and the climate was absolutely fantastic. So there was a lot of such occasion where people has witnessed the saintliness of him, and those special powers that he has. So now let's talk about how and when did Thirumeni passed away, or about his demise. So Thirumeni had ulcers, had developed ulcers which was getting worse because of his frequent fasting. So he fell ill. So Thirumeni's illness then became very worse in September 1902. Vattasseril Gregorios, one of his disciples, prominent disciples, he came to look after him in the seminary, and every possible treatment was tried, but nothing was helping. Thirumeni already had, people say that Thirumeni already knew that when is he going to die, and he had told a couple of people that this is when he is probably going to die. So Pulligotal Thirumeni, to whom he was very dear, he came to seminary when he heard that he is unwell, and when he saw him in pain, he cried aloud in grief to see Thirumeni in that pain. So Thirumeni had complaints, like I said, had complaints of ulcer, and that was getting worse, and that's how he was, that made him sick. So people from everywhere were coming to see Thirumeni when they heard this, and Thirumeni was always being very particular that anybody who will come to the seminary should be fed. So people were getting food along with them and making contributions. So in large quantity, and daily large number of people could be fed. So Thirumeni was getting weaker with each day, and one day he called Vattasseril Gregorias closer to him and handed him over keys and the crosier and other items. Crosier is that stick with that curve in it. So he gave him all of these items, and after that he was lying still for about 3 days. On 18th he asked that what is the date, and when people told him the date, he said that okay, that means I have to wait for 2 more days to before I say bid farewell to everybody here. So that kind of gave everybody idea that he was well aware when is he going to go. So on 20th there was a special kurbana, and Thirumeni was given kurbana. So by midnight Thirumeni then passed away. The bells of Parumala seminary sang the wailing tune. The message was passed across river Pampa to the people of country. Now let's read about the interment, or about his burial. The services started on Monday and completed on Tuesday. Mar Gregorias Metropolitan led the service because Pulligotal Thirumeni, who was ideally supposed to do the service, could not lead it because of his profound grief. He was in pain seeing his with the demise of his favorite student. The funeral procession has the presence of large crowd. Everyone were crying and wailing. Before the interment, it took almost 3 hours for the people to kiss the hand of Thirumeni. That was the amount of crowd that was there. The location of tomb was earlier itself pointed out by Thirumeni. New clothes were distributed to the poor who had come on the funeral. On the 30th day of his demise, there was a grand scale, around 600 bushels and rupees 1300 was spent for the feast on that day. On the same day, Vattasseril Gregorias and Kochuvarambil Paulos Ramban was elected as bishop. The Metropolitan of Jerusalem also sent his condolences message and said, "The lamp of our church is out." And then he was canonized as a saint in on 2nd November 1947, on his 45th anniversary. And like I told you in a couple of slides back, that his own student, His Holiness Basilios Gregorios II, was the one who declared him as a saint. what are the contributions that Parumala Thirumeni has made? It's immense. I think we cannot probably name all of them. He's been that kind of a soul and that kind of a human being that he was. That is the reason he's been canonized as saint. So he was a great example, a role model for true Eastern spirituality. He was known for his prayer and strict ascetic practices. He nurtured. It is under him that Church Orthodox Church grew. He was known as Saint Anthony of Malankara Orthodox Church, which means a true monk. He was a social reformer. He paid a lot of emphasis on English education. Probably he emphasized that down the line this would be an important mode of communication. He was gospel to non-Christians. He was a good shepherd. He was a great teacher. He was a great orator and a great writer. So many qualities he had, and there's so much to learn. I think the least that we can learn from him is that to be good humans by being humble, down to earth, respecting others, speaking to people smilingly, people who are weaker, being nice to them, and have a helping heart. And always, if we have the capability, if we have the means, we must go out there and support people. So on that note, we've come to an end of this chapter. A very good learning, and I would request all of you to take some time out and read about this saint from the chapter, otherwise from your books as well. And so yes, with that we've come to an end of this chapter, and I wish you guys all the best. May God bless us all. Thank you.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.